So I look a little blotchy in the face and unhappy. I literally got pushed out of the shelter, told that there was no beds. It was late enough for them to have established a overflow, because they'll establish it as they give out beds at 2 o'clock. So either there are no beds, or they just were just too flustered, and it's just too much when it's 20 degrees out. It's probably a little bit colder now. Feels like 8 degrees, but wind chill of -2. There are way too little beds out there for women, and women with children, or men with children. I think that women are deeply underserved when it comes to getting shelter or emergency assistance of some sort. I think it affects every state, but when I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, I could try, and if I come here late tonight, I can't sleep. I don't know. You know, it makes me mad at the people that I've met through Occupy, journalists, people I've invited to learn about homelessness and the reality of what people go through. Because, like, one night in a shelter isn't going to teach you everything that you go through as a homeless person. Maybe, you know, what has to happen is somebody has to do the same experiment that this one guy did, that he decided, because he had a lesbian friend and he was this Christian in the Bible Belt, that he had to, on his own, find out what his friend was going through, because he spent so much energy trying to save his friend. You know what? There's a parallel here, because, like, there are people out there that they spend so much energy trying to help people with prejudgment, and you know, and some of the things that I wanted to do to help people isn't prejudgment, but like, I'm not judging someone by wanting to supply them with clean underwear. I'm understanding what it's like to not have that. But the stereotypes of who's homeless and who's not has a lot to do with services that are provided. Inequality of pay that still continues, even though we have the Lilly Ledbetter law, until government is willing to fine and take tax breaks away from corporations that continue to pay women less. You know, you could say, oh, that will destroy companies, blah, blah, blah. You start going after the assets of the companies that are billionaires. You know, instead of going after the company money, you go after the personal finances of companies that are violating the law, federal law. Anyways, back to the subject at hand. I called 211 here, you know, and they don't have any help that they can do, because they did say what they tell people is to go to the emergency room, because the emergency room can't kick you out. And I'm like, well, yes, they can. They kick people out all the time. You have to register. and you can't stay. So I'm like, once I get to Starbucks, I'm going to look up and see if I can find this stupid law that says that they can't kick people out of emergency room. Where can someone who's homeless go to stay warm? And what needs to be done is warming stations in the winter. You know, yeah, they may not be a place for sleeping, but it'd be a place of refuge from the cold when there is no place to go. And especially if you get barred from a place, because a lot of times they just kick you out of the shelter. They're not arresting you or anything, so that you have a place to go. I really, really, really want people to start. I really want to get true stories on video of people's experiences and why they don't use shelters, or what their experiences in shelters have been to make them not want to use shelters. Unfortunately, the people that I do see that don't use shelters have severe mental illness or substance abuse problems. And but it's very difficult. And you know, if it's self-serving to want to get your message out, that the greater problem with services isn't just about me, and it has to do with more than me. I've always been this person who tries to be a champion of others and take care of other people. But this is about me too. You know, my anger and frustration, it has to do with me and other women out there. There's not these imaginary women out there that don't have shelter. I see them get turned away. I see them on the streets. I hear the stories. You see them in overflow. This year, for overflow, they only allow 12. Last year, they allowed 21. But because the fire alarm went off last year and the fire marshal saw how many people were there, they called it back. Gotta come up with solutions that work. You can't just say, well, we can't serve anybody else. They have this, like, in the dining room, this little thing on wheels where, you know, where they serve the meals off of. It's not even, like, plugged in. It's just like a storage thing. They could move that back, and then they could probably be able to add about 3 more beds. And then if they piled the tables, folded the tables and piled the chairs right, 2 more beds. So it's like, if you added 5 more beds, you know, mats, there's 5 women that don't get turned away. It may not be 21 like last year, but at least it's more people. Maybe it's time. There's just so many different things that they need to consider. Like I said, the co-ed thing doesn't always work. It's time to really, really emphasize on people who, I mean, they've gotten rid of contract beds for certain things as a way to free up beds, but that's not working, obviously, because there's still people who need beds. I've met people who are not even trying to find housing, and they can afford housing. So I'm like, you're taking a place, like, it's frustrating to me to see somebody, or just to be somebody who can't afford something and see someone who could just slap you in the face. So, and I don't know. It's just, we have to stop with this bullshit of, oh, the numbers, the census. Nobody has talked to me about no damn census yet, and I know that they're out there right now. Nobody has talked to me at all. So, it'd be nice if, like, people really actually did the job. I'll find out tomorrow, because there's a meeting at Rosie's about the recent proposed cuts. I mean, they're proposing federal funding cuts on housing. I think I mentioned it on this other video that I'll be posting. But it's like, where are the people telling the truth? You know, we have all this movement, Occupy movement, focusing on the people who got screwed over by the foreclosure. Yeah, I would say about 30% of the people that got foreclosed on were a bunch of liars that lied about their income because of loopholes. Loopholes that were put in there about 20, 30 years ago. You know, they were self-employed people who didn't have to reveal their income, or people who didn't understand math. But yeah, a lot of people got screwed. People whose first language wasn't English, and people who were deceived and preyed upon. And, the other problem, like, with it, we're one of the few countries where people will get a second mortgage on their house to pay medical debt. This is another reason why people are homeless. And you know what? Has anyone done a study to see the overall health of a person once they become homeless, and then once they become housed? Because there's been several cases of people that get housed and die the next day, commit suicide. You could sit there and say, well, we can't discriminate. You obviously are, because you're housing someone too late. They have been burnt out and killed by the homelessness.